Excellent. All right, we have our afternoon keynote. Really cool, in my opinion. I've been waiting for it, so I think I will come to watch it among the audience, because it's really, I mean, a speaker that you can't hear every day. She's coming only for this event from Spain, so really, I need your help. We really have to give her our warmest welcome, the co-founder and chairperson of Mozilla Foundation, Mitchell Baker. Come on.
Thanks. Inspiring change. We talk about change a lot, and it's exciting. But sometimes we don't talk about change is really hard. And it's sometimes hard to make change and hard to really want it. And so I wanted to talk about how we've made some change at Mozilla, how we think about it, and what I think drives really successful efforts at change. So you have an idea, you really want to change something. What makes an idea powerful? There's a couple things. One is doing something you love. Easy to say, harder to do. Because figuring out something that you love that's got change in it is going to be different than what most people are doing. So what are the sorts of things that, even if your first startup isn't successful, you love enough to be doing and to look back and say, that was worthwhile, and I learned enough, and I still love it, and I'm going to do my second one, and that one's going to be successful. Because over time, some are successful the very first time. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times. Sometimes you have a small success at the beginning. You meet the person, you meet the team. Right? But it's a long-term process to make something new and to build it and to build value. And sometimes it happens quickly, and the Instagram example, you know, we all look at. But for every Instagram, there's also a lot of startups that have been at it for a long time. So doing something that you love is really an important way. But another way that motivates people is fixing something that you hate. And it turns out that's a pretty good motivator for people, and it's a very different mindset. So the people who really hate something, they find a problem, and they're sort of irritated about it, and they really dig in and they fix it. And so sometimes I see teams trying to change things. Some people are working for what they love. Other people are fixing what they hate. Sometimes those teams can work together. But if you don't know that you're doing fundamentally different things, sometimes teams start to fall apart. Like the motivator for someone who's fixing something they hate is mentally and emotionally different than the motivator for someone who's doing something that they really love. They're both valid, they're both effective, they're very different personality types. So give it some thought. And if you find that you and your partner or your team have really different motivations, then think about it a little bit. Sometimes knowing that and knowing why you're changing something and how you go about it can be really important. Because wanting to change or inspiring change is different than wanting to be successful. So if what you really want is to be successful, then I would say that. I mean, I wouldn't hide it. You know, inspiring change and so on is kind of glamorous, and we talk about it now, and you know, it feels great. But if what you really want to do is be successful in a market, just say that. You don't need to change necessarily. And if what you're looking for is success, don't make it harder by wrapping it up in change. But if you're really motivated by change of some sort, I'd encourage you to think a little bit about what is it that motivates you and how are you going to actually sustain that for a long period of time. Because, of course, even if you build and sell a company, you're still in that company for a while, and there's a long period of time where you want to be engaged in the industry. That's what your expertise is. And so finding a way that really meets what's driving you and being clear about what's driving you is a really important thing. And the thing that I find that gets in the way the most was actual real difference of opinion with someone. But the next most important thing is not being able to state clearly what you're trying to do. So if your partner wants to be successful, financially successful, and you want to make change, and you don't actually have that discussion, like it will bubble up later on. And so one of the things that I've always aimed at Mozilla is just brutal honesty. Right? The price is, inside Mozilla, we can be brutally nasty to each other, but I prefer that to having a conversation that's not real. So at Mozilla, one of the things that I love is exploring. I like setting out on a path, not knowing where it's going, figuring it out as we go along. I like that in the physical world, with traveling and so on, but I like it online as well. And so that was the thing that motivated me with the web at the very beginning of Mozilla, and then through the long, dark days when Mozilla was a failure, was how do I build something that allows the most exploration with the least amount of structure. And at the time, the first thing was a browser. So for me and for my partner, that was a key motivator. That was a very positive motivator. And I've been lucky with my partner and co-founder at Mozilla, that's Brendan Eich. He's the creator of JavaScript back in '95, and he's been a leader in web technologies and Mozilla forever. So he and I share this desire. Now, we have very different backgrounds, of course, but this core desire of what motivates change is really similar. If you're really lucky, the thing that motivates you will have both the thing that you love and the thing that you hate all wrapped up in one. So I love to explore. I hate to be in a box. Like if someone else makes the rules, I don't like it. Like it might be a really nice setting, it might be beautiful, it might work, I might be making money, but if someone else has kind of created all the parameters and set up the environment, I just don't like it. And so I've left a bunch of those settings in my life. And I know today that everyone who's anybody in the tech industry really needs to love the iPhone. And I recognize that it's a beautiful and elegant product, and it's got nice workflow, and it's got a lot of stuff that's great about it. But I feel boxed in. I find everywhere I turn, there's Apple. Everything I want to do, there's a rule about it. There's usually a permission about it. There's a form I need to sign about it. It covers the landscape. And so for me, beautiful and elegant though it might be, I don't like it. And so in that case, the whole motivation for change combines what I love, which is exploring, with what I hate, which is being in a box. And so these have been the motivations. They were the motivations way back when we made Firefox, in that long ago era where the box was Microsoft. And they continue to be the motivations today, through the era where we cracked open the web with Firefox, and back into a new era where we're starting to see online life live in boxes and in highly controlled settings. So the thing that drives us at Mozilla is a desire to take the qualities that made the web open and bring those qualities to the mobile environment and every other computing environment that comes along. When we think about the web, it was clearly decentralized. There was no one organization that controlled it. You could make your new thing. We didn't call them apps then, we called them applications or websites. But you could make your new thing and offer it to the world. You didn't need to ask permission of anyone. You didn't need to fit in anyone's business plan. You could use whatever technology you wanted. Those are really powerful technologies. They're powerful for innovation. They're powerful for developers. They're powerful for freedom. And they were powerful tools to be able to explore wherever you want, wherever I want. It's nice if you like where I want to go, but I don't care. Like, I want to build what I want to build, and if you like it, or Apple likes it, or Google likes it, or the telephone company likes it, I don't care. Like that, I don't want to stop me from even being able to explore. So that's the current change that we're trying to drive at Mozilla. So that's combines, fortunately, again, what we like, with what we hate. Those aren't necessarily easy things, but we've actually been working on it for a long time. We started with technology. And we started with technology way back in 2004, maybe even 2003, which is when HTML5 really started. In those days, of course, we didn't know about that the mobile environment was coming. We didn't know exactly what the products would look like, but we knew what the key technology was going to be, and that was, obviously, HTML5. It did not look like that at the time. HTML5 came to life through one guy at Opera, which used to be an important company in the desktop browser space. One guy, he's at Google now, and the Mozilla Foundation. And in a funky, rundown, lone building, that no one could find, and it was a pretty lousy building. But early in days in the Mozilla Foundation, when we had no money and 10 or 12 people, and we were trying to build Firefox, we also spent the time and energy to build HTML5. This was before Google was public, before Google built browsers, before Google believed in standards. And so Opera and Mozilla would get together regularly, and every so often Apple would show up. And Apple was really helpful when the engineers showed up, and then we'd get into discussions with the legal department. So HTML5 was a long shot when we started it. We had to fight with the standards bodies, but we knew that this kind of technology would be important for the long term. And so when we think about bringing the openness and freedoms of the web to the mobile space, we have a firm technology basis. And in the last 6 months or so, and the next 6 months, the changes and capabilities in HTML5 are really dramatic. Now it's possible to access all of the capabilities of the underlying hardware, which wasn't true 2 years ago. And it's also possible to do real-time video and 3D graphics at a speed that also wasn't imaginable quite not long ago. So the technology's there to actually make the mobile environment reflect the openness of the web. Technology's obviously only a part, and so there's the product drive as well. And so getting from technology to product is hard. And that's one of those key aspects where you see a lot of startups get stuck, is you have technology that you know is really useful. Sometimes the desire to build a consumer product isn't always there. Like I find sometimes with startups, if you've got people who are really, really deep into technology, the piece about building a product that a non-technologist will want can be very hard. It was very hard at Mozilla to make that change. And so the productization piece is another kind of change. And so again, you'll see this sort of the exploration, the loving of exploration, and the really distaste for being stuck in a box. Those things show up in Mozilla products because that's the kind of change that we're interested in. And so using HTML5, the next product offering to come out of Mozilla will be Firefox operating system. And that's an operating system built entirely of web technologies, Linux kernel, device drivers and such, and then the web on top of it. And so what that does is it simplifies the technology, and it makes the integration point between the web and the phone and the apps much easier. So we are on the cusp of putting an affordable, fully hackable personal computer in the hands of probably 2 billion people who've never had it. But we're also on the cusp of making that available to developers to actually have access to the full capability of the phone. So if you think back to the moment, when you looked at something that was interesting and you went to view source and you saw how it worked. That's the same motif that allows the kinds of freedom to move forward, which is what we'll find in Firefox OS. And that, of course, involves working with a bunch of different people. The key for us is going back to the thing that we love and the thing that we hate. There's wild exploration and not being in a box. And so what Firefox OS is designed to do is not to create a third platform. We have no interest in Apple versus Google versus Microsoft versus Nokia versus Mozilla, or any combination of that. What we are interested in seeing is the web, the platform that we've been living on for the last 15 years, be the third alternative to the Apple and Google stacks. There are hundreds of thousands of people who know how to develop the web. There are billions of people who access it. And that integration between what we built to date plus the new capabilities of apps and phones allows the kind of integration of the things you can't think about. So today, sometimes on a phone, if you don't have an app for something, you just don't do it. So that cuts out a huge amount of life. By the time you have an app for everything you want to do, you've got something that you need to search and find that is a sort of poorer rendition of the web. So that combination is the key to living outside of the box and having the kinds of innovation and freedoms and challenges that allow people to try the crazy things that nobody else thinks is really worth doing. And so as we're working on this, we've begun working with a bunch of different partners with the idea of bringing choice and innovation and allowing code to be written once for the browser and run across a whole range of devices so that that development cycle isn't platform specific, and that the data can move between them not only for developers and not only in the cloud, but also for users, so that my devices can be shared. Of course, there needs to be a marketplace for this, or many marketplaces. Today we have a model of what a marketplace looks like and how you work in one and how you monetize and what the revenue share with the marketplace owner is. And that seems natural to us. But there are many other options. Right? Apple has one system that works beautifully for it. Google has something similar. But in the real world, in the physical world, we live in a world of different choices. There are many stores. There are many ways of dealing with things. And so some degree of flexibility and freedom in where you put your apps. Maybe you want to distribute it yourself. Maybe you want the discoverability of a marketplace, but you don't want to share the revenue. Maybe you live in a community and you want to do something slightly different. Those are all possibilities. They're not built today because nobody wanted to build them, but that's what Mozilla is working on. And we're doing that because not only do we want to explore ourselves, but we want to see what happens when everyone has the ability to explore wherever you want to go. The web was explosive, like wildly explosive, and really quite different. And so that sense of watching what happens with maximum opportunity is high for us. And of course, living inside a box, it's not just enough that we don't live inside a box. It's important that you don't, and that the people who come to the web via the mobile environment have the kinds of freedom and exploration as well. So these kinds of changes aren't really easy. When we started at Mozilla, it was impossible. Everyone knew that what we were doing was stupid. It would never be successful, and it would never matter if we succeeded. And we lived in that world for a number of years. We were a failure for a number of years until we actually built the product that proved us right. And so we know that seeing the future that doesn't exist yet is hard, but that's actually one of the key challenges of creating change. And so as you figure out, how much change do you really want to create? What's your strength in creating change? And what kind of approach and vision do you want to have? There's also the articulation of something you can't see. That's really hard, but it's part of the change. There's the put the product in front of people, there's the articulate where it is, and then there's stand back and let people run forward. So that's our goal at Mozilla, and we expect to see a lot of change in the future. We think the next few years are going to have a lot of aspects of the web that grow increasingly controlled. We think governments are going to control the web more in the next few years. That looks pretty clear. Pretty unfortunate, but sure looks that way. The commercial players are increasingly building closely integrated stacks with single business models that you can fit into. We see a lot of that in the next few years. But we also see immense possibilities in the distribution of innovation. The idea that this is happening here in Italy and that there's this kind of energy here. And this is reflected that as innovation gets distributed, the ability for change grows and the possibility grows. So we see a lot of threats to the quality of online life in the next few years, but we see even more opportunities, and we hope to see you and Mozilla in the same world. Thank you.
Thanks again to Michelle Baker. Thank you.